In space, diplomacy is 90% paperwork and 10% near-death flirting. That's what I tell myself while bleeding through a tuxedo that costs more than my entire salary. The galaxy's elite whirl around me, pretending their species are too evolved for violence, while I press a napkin against my ribs and try to look professional. Welcome to another day in the Intergalactic Treaty Gala, the only party where smiling is mandatory and assassination attempts are considered political feedback. My name's Corvan Reed, human, bodyguard, emotional support meat shield. The Vulpine Envoy I'm assigned to protect, Lady Lyrixa Tailflare, is the reason the words conflict of interest are printed in bold on every contract. She's tall, silver-furred, eyes like molten gold, and an ego that could outshine a dying sun. The first time she introduced herself, she offered a handshake and a smirk that said she already knew I'd mess something up. "You humans always guard so rigidly," she'd teased, her tail curling like a question mark. "It's called professionalism," I answered, focusing on keeping my eyes at snout level. "MMH, looks painful." That's Lyrixa. Every word double-loaded like a sniper round. Even now, while I'm bleeding, she looks more amused than worried, sipping something neon and judging the assassin's aim. Vulpines don't panic, they critique. I shove her behind a column, pull my pulse pistol, and scan the crowd. "Stay down, Envoy." She ignores me. "You're bleeding. Is that supposed to be impressive or just your species' hobby?" "Little of both." She tilts her head, studying the crimson patch spreading across my side. "You humans have a strange relationship with damage. Always leaking to prove loyalty." "It's a cultural thing," I grunt. "We call it dedication." She hums, tail flicking dangerously close to my arm. "Or masochism." Before I can answer, she straightens, brushes imaginary dust from her fur, and declares loudly enough for half the room to hear, "My bodyguard bleeds for me." The music cuts. All eyes turn. Somewhere, an alien violin squeaks. And then, she looks right past me. Not at me. Through me. "Wait," she mutters, "did we just nail the title line?" "What?" "Nothing," she says quickly, flashing her diplomatic smile. "Continue your heroism." I blink, trying to process the whiplash. Maybe I've lost too much blood. The medbots arrive, patching me up with adhesive foam that smells like burnt sugar. Lyrixa narrates the process like a nature documentary. Observe the human in his natural state, leaking bravely, apologizing for the inconvenience, and insisting he's fine. I glare. "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely." I don't know if it's the blood loss or her tone, but for a moment I forget she's technically a client and not a stand-up comedian with diplomatic immunity. As the crowd resumes pretending nothing happened, I escort her toward her transport. She walks with the kind of grace that says she's been rehearsing every step since birth. I limp beside her like a malfunctioning droid. "You could show a little gratitude," I tell her. "I'm Vulpine," she replies. "Our gratitude comes in subtler forms." "Such as?" She smiles. "Not firing you for bleeding on my dress." I snort. "Generous." She glances sideways. "Do humans often risk their lives for those who tease them?" "Only on Tuesdays." That earns the smallest laugh, sharp and bright. Then she looks at me more carefully. "You really don't know when you're flirting, do you?" "I'm trained to ignore provocation." "Pity. You'd be good at it." Her shuttle door opens, casting her in the cold blue light of the engines. She turns back, tail swaying. "Corvan Reed, you're either the bravest fool I've met or the most endearing. Can't I be both?" "You already are." She pauses, eyes glinting. "Try not to die, protector. It ruins the mood." And with that, she's gone, leaving me in the corridor with my patched wound and a growing suspicion that the universe has a sense of humor. Later, in the medical bay, the ship's AI plays soft elevator music while scanning my vitals. I tell it to shut up. It doesn't. Lyrixa calls in via holo, upside down because she refuses to adjust her camera. "You survived," she pairs. "How inconvenient." I was halfway through drafting a eulogy. Touching. Oh, it was going to be short. He bled efficiently. I can't help but laugh, which hurts like hell. You know, some species express concern differently. Concern? I prefer curiosity. For example, how does your blood manage to stain everything so vividly? Our diplomats use pigment for signatures. You seem built for it. I'll add that to my resume, professional stain source. She giggles, a sound that somehow manages to be elegant and mocking. Admit it, human. You like the attention. Sure. Nothing boosts morale like internal bleeding and sarcasm. She leans closer to the camera. You think sarcasm will protect you? Adorable. Better than fur. Her eyes narrow, but the corner of her mouth twitches upward. Careful. I bite. I've been vaccinated. There's a beat of silence. Then she laughs again, this time genuine and unguarded. You really are impossible. And you really should let the medbots check you for toxins. Assassins sometimes coat their weapons. She sighs theatrically. So demanding. Fine. But only because you asked so earnestly while half delirious. As the call ends, I stare at the ceiling and wonder what part of my life choices led to flirting with a fox alien over interspecies blood protocols. Probably the same part that joined the Diplomatic Protection Corps for stable employment. The ship hums softly. Outside, the stars blur by like spilled light. I close my eyes, listening to the AI announce that my heart rate is irregularly consistent. Yeah, that sounds about right. The next morning, the report of the attack comes through: no suspects, minimal casualties, and one bodyguard who refused to die on schedule. My superior congratulates me with all the enthusiasm of a malfunctioning toaster. Lyrixa sends a fruit basket shaped like a grenade. Attached note: for your heroic leakage. Do try not to repeat it without supervision. I chuckle despite myself. She's impossible. Infuriating. And maybe, just maybe, exactly what this boring galaxy needs. As I sip terrible recycled coffee, I catch my reflection in the viewport, tired eyes, faint scar forming, expression caught somewhere between irritation and amusement. Human protector bleeds for Vulpine Envoy, I mutter. Yeah. That's one way to summarize a bad day at work. Behind me, the AI chimes in cheerfully. Would you like me to record that as your mission statement? Don't you dare. But it's too late. Somewhere in the system, the line becomes official, etched into digital logs like prophecy. I sigh. Because deep down, I already know this isn't the last time I'll bleed for her. And the scary part? I think she knows it too. Corvan wakes up in a dim cabin that smells faintly of antiseptic and vulpine perfume. The med foam on his ribs has hardened like cheap armor, and his first thought is that he'd trade 2 medals and a kidney for a real cup of coffee. The AI cheerfully informs him that caffeine is restricted until his biological fluid stops trying to escape. He ignores it and stands anyway, swaying just enough to remind himself that heroism has lousy side effects. Before he can limp to the replicator, the door slides open and Lyrixa saunters in as if she owns the ship. She's wearing what passes for diplomatic casual, half cloak, half scandal. Her eyes trace the bandages, tail swishing lazily. You're upright, she observes. Impressive. Most humans prefer to suffer horizontally. I like a challenge, he mutters, reaching for the mug the replicator finally spits out. You like being dramatic, she corrects. Bleeding in public, nearly fainting at my feet, it was very theatrical. If I didn't know better, I'd think you were flirting with the entire delegation. Corvan sips his coffee and stares. I don't flirt on duty. Pity, she says. I do. The words hang there, deliberately heavy. He sets the mug down before he chokes on subtext. Protocol Section 47, he says dryly. No physical attachment to the protectee. She steps closer, feigning innocence. Physical attachment? Is that the one that covers tail contact? Yes. Eye contact? Yes. Emotional attachment? Especially that. Lyrix's grin widens. How fascinating. You humans write entire manuals just to forbid what makes life interesting. Her tail flicks, brushing his sleeve. Would this be a violation? It's borderline, he says tightly. I've always liked borders. They're made to be crossed. He groans. You enjoy making me miserable. It's cultural exchange. She circles him once, examining his posture as if grading a student. Tell me, Corvan, why do humans treat suffering like a sport? You bleed, you grin, you call it courage. My species calls it stupidity. We call it commitment, he replies. To what? Pain. To doing the right thing, even when it hurts. She tilts her head. Ah, masochism with a flag. He almost smiles, despite himself. You should try it sometime. I prefer pleasure with a plan. Figures. She steps back and folds her arms. Still, I suppose I owe you gratitude. You saved my life. I should perform the traditional Vulpine gesture of thanks. What's that? She leans in close, whispering, a bite. Gentle. Symbolic. Sometimes fatal. I'll take a handshake. Coward. Before he can retort, she freezes mid-smirk. Her pupils dilate, ears twitching. Did you hear that? Hear what? The narrator. He said before he can retort. Corvan blinks. You mean my voice? No, she says, frowning. A different one. The smug omniscient one. He keeps describing my tale like it's a supporting character. He stares at her, wondering if the meds have side effects. You need rest. She snaps her fingers. There. He wrote that. You said that because he wrote that. She points at the ceiling. I know you're up there, storyteller. Don't pretend. Corvan rubs his temples. You've lost it. Lyrixa folds her arms. Maybe. Or maybe I'm the only one paying attention. Haven't you noticed how everything we say sounds suspiciously well edited? No pauses, no ums, perfect comedic timing. He hesitates. She has a point. Even his internal thoughts feel structured. So what? We're in a simulation. Worse, she says. A fanfic. He blinks. A what? Humanity's most dangerous art form. Endless stories about romance, explosions, and bad metaphors. We're probably in one of those HFY tales, humans being impressive for the sake of narrative convenience. That's ridiculous. Really? Watch. She clears her throat, straightens her posture, and says loudly, if this is a story, the next sentence will describe how the human blushes. Corvan feels heat crawl up his neck immediately. Lyrixa bursts out laughing. See? Predictable. You're written like a schoolboy. He grits his teeth. Maybe you're hallucinating. She winks. Hallucinations don't have fan bases. For a moment, he's not sure what to do with that. Then the eye's voice cuts in, glitching slightly. Attention crew, reality integrity at 96%. Narrative deviation detected. Lyrixa smirks triumphantly. Told you. He points a finger at her. If you broke reality, I'm filing a report. Oh, please. I just bent it a little. The lights flicker. A stack of data pads levitates for a second, rearranging themselves into the word plot. Lyrixa's ears perk up. Oh, that's new. I like it. Corvan groans. You're enjoying this. Of course I am. How often does a diplomat get to argue with her own author? He grabs a bandage roll, wrapping it tighter. Look, if this is some side effect of alien wine, it'll pass. Denial, she says sweetly, is the first act twist. Enough. Fine, but admit it, you like having a reality problem. Humans are addicted to fixing things that aren't broken. That's called survival instinct. She grins. I call it foreplay. He chokes on air. You're impossible. And you're blushing again. He turns away, muttering, I'm requesting reassignment. You won't, she says confidently. Why not? Because you're the protagonist. He glares. Stop saying that. Can't. It's literally written. Something in the air hums, like feedback from the stars. Corvan can almost feel the unseen narrator waiting. The silence stretches until Lyrixa breaks it with a mischievous sigh. You know, for a story, you humans bleed well. Always a bit messy, but sincere. He exhales slowly. We're not stories. We're people. She smirks. That's exactly what a character would say. He should argue, but part of him wonders if she's right. Everything since the gala feels too polished, too timed. Even his sarcasm has rhythm. Maybe this is what insanity feels like, organized, entertaining insanity. Lyrixa plucks a datapad from the air and scrolls through invisible text. Oh look, dialogue tags. He said dryly. She teased mercilessly. Honestly, whoever's writing us needs better adjectives. He groans again. Can you not antagonize cosmic forces for 5 minutes? Why not? If we're trapped in a script, I might as well get good lines. She tosses the pad aside and stretches, fur shimmering. Besides, it's not like they can delete me. I'm the fan favorite. You've known me for a week. Readers love chaos, she says with a wink. And tales. Great. So I'm the straight man in your comedy special. Finally, he understands his role. He exhales, fighting a smile he shouldn't have. You're going to drive me insane. That's the goal, darling. Sanity's overrated. Outside, the ship drifts past a nebula glowing faintly violet. Corvan watches it through the viewport, trying to find comfort in something that doesn't talk back. Lyrixa joins him, her reflection overlapping his. You humans, she says softly, almost serious now. Always bleeding, always pretending you're fine. Maybe that's why you're interesting. You mistake endurance for virtue. And you mistake mockery for honesty. She chuckles. Touché. Then, after a pause, maybe that's why the story likes us, we argue well. Corvan doesn't answer. The hum of the ship and the quiet of the stars fill the space where logic should be. Somewhere above, or maybe around them, a narrator sighs approvingly. Lyrixa looks up, ears twitching. See? Even he. Lyrixa spends the next cycle treating the ship like her personal stage. Every hallway becomes a setup, every door a punchline. She's discovered she can change things just by declaring them, colors, sounds, even physics, so now gravity flickers like mood lighting. Corvan walks through the chaos with the patience of a man who's already seen too much. Do you ever stop breaking things? He asks, ducking as a chandelier spontaneously materializes. Improving, she corrects. You humans call it innovation when you do it. He sighs. When we innovate, we don't delete furniture mid-conversation. Details, she says, smirking. Besides, if reality's going to bend, it might as well bend aesthetically. She snaps her fingers and the floor turns into polished glass, reflecting the stars outside. Corvan nearly slips. Could you not? I could, she says, but then we'd just be two boring people on a boring ship waiting for the next plot point. And where's the fun in that? He gives her a look that could sterilize steel. You think this is fun? The AI keeps reporting narrative anomalies. We're one step away from spontaneous combustion. She leans closer, whispering, that's what makes it exciting. He exhales through his teeth. You're enjoying this because you don't believe consequences apply to you. Oh, but they do, she pairs. I just prefer to flirt with them first. He mutters something unprintable and walks toward the control deck. The ship's console blinks error codes that read like bad jokes, timeline buffer overflow. Protagonist's stress level, moderate to aroused. He covers the screen with his hand. Stop reading diagnostics about my emotional state. Lyrixa chuckles behind him. Don't be shy. The universe already knows your vitals. It probably ships us. He turns, eyes narrowing. Ships us? She grins. You really don't read fanfiction, do you? No. Tragic. You'd love the ones where we get stranded on a frozen moon and have to share body heat. He points at her, jaw tight. Enough. We need to figure out what's happening before this story collapses completely. Then you'd better start writing faster, she says, handing him a stylus. He blinks. What? If the narrator can control us, maybe we can control the narrator. Create our own lines. He frowns but humors her, grabbing a datapad and scribbling. Gravity stabilizes. Everything normal. The ship immediately steadies. His stomach drops. That actually worked. Lyrixa beams. See? I told you creativity was contagious. For a moment, they just stare at each other, equally startled by the power. Then she grins. Your turn to test something fun. Right? Envoy kisses Protector passionately. He scowls. No. Oh, come on, it's for science. Science can wait. Cowardice noted. Instead, he writes system logs reset. Narrative normalized. The lights flicker back to their steady hum. But just as he exhales in relief, the console flashes a new message: error, character chemistry unresolved. Lyrixa bursts out laughing. Even the ship thinks we have tension. He tries not to react. Ignore it. The lights dim suggestively. Definitely not ignoring it, she says, stepping closer. He straightens, determined to keep things professional. Look, if we're trapped in some kind of metafictional loop, we need to think practically. What breaks a story? A bad ending, she answers. Or boring characters. Then we avoid both, he says. No dramatics, no flirting, no chaos. She tilts her head, pretending to consider. So, no fun. Exactly. Understood. She smirks and immediately pulls a lever that changes the ship's lighting to a pulsing pink. Just setting the mood for serious discussion. Lyrixa. Yes, dear. Turn it off. Make me. He rubs the bridge of his nose. You're impossible. I'm evolving. She flicks her tail and looks up at the ceiling. Narrator, can we get a slow zoom here? He's about to lecture me again. Stop talking to it. Why? It's clearly on my side. The ship hums approvingly, lights shifting warmer. Corvan groans. Great. Even the eye is flirting now. You humans always assume the universe revolves around you, she teases. But sometimes it revolves around your sarcasm. He crosses his arms. You think everything's a joke. She shrugs. If existence insists on being absurd, I might as well laugh at it. He studies her for a moment, trying to find the cracks beneath the confidence. Aren't you afraid? If we really are fiction, none of this is real. Her smile fades slightly. Of course I'm afraid. But fear's just another kind of curiosity. He blinks. That's surprisingly profound for someone who renamed the ship Plot Device. It fit the mood. He chuckles despite himself. You're unbelievable. That's the point, she says, voice softening. If I have to exist in someone else's story, I'd rather be the unbelievable part. For the first time, he doesn't have a comeback. The silence stretches between them, filled with low engine hum and something almost tender. Then, because the universe can't stand sincerity for long, the console chirps again. Warning, genre drift detected, approaching romantic subplot. Lyrixa raises an eyebrow. Well, the plot thickens. He glares at the console. No. The plot stays strictly professional. Tell that to your pulse, she murmurs. He takes a steadying breath. We need to find a way to reset the narrative without erasing ourselves. Simple, she says. We rewrite the ending before it's written. He frowns. You mean, create our own closure? Exactly. You humans love closure. It's your version of divine order. You end wars, relationships, lives, just to feel tidy. And you don't. She grins faintly. We prefer open endings. They keep the readers hungry. He doesn't admit it, but that makes sense. She's chaos, his structure. Maybe that's why they balance. If this story were an equation, they'd cancel each other out. He starts typing again, words glowing softly on the pad. Characters find peace, story concludes naturally. The room shivers, gravity fluctuating for a second before stabilizing again. See, he says. We're fixing it. Lyrixa leans over his shoulder, reading. You just wrote us into retirement. It's safer than imploding. Safer, she repeats with a smirk, but dull. She grabs the stylus and scrolls beneath his line. Before the story ends, the Envoy teaches the Protector one last lesson. Corvan tries to stop her, but the words flare and dissolve into light. He feels something shift, an energy humming through his veins, like the narrative itself inhaled. Lyrixa meets his eyes, expression unreadable. Lesson 1, she says softly, never underestimate a well-timed rewrite. He exhales, caught between annoyance and reluctant admiration. You really can't follow orders, can you? Orders are just requests with extra paperwork. The console beeps once more, narrative stable, for now. Corvan leans back, exhausted. If we survive this, I'm buying you a dictionary. You've ruined half the language. She grins. Or improved it. Depends who's reading. For once, he lets himself laugh. It's sharp, genuine, unexpected. She joins him, tails swishing, laughter echoing through the ship until the AI timidly announces, humor levels, dangerously high. Good, she says. Let them laugh. That's how stories breathe. And though he won't admit it out loud, he hopes this one doesn't stop breathing anytime soon. The alarms start at dawn, or whatever passes for dawn when time itself has given up. The ship groans like it's had enough of their banter, the lights strobing crimson. Corvan's first thought is that reality has finally called in its debts. Lyrixa, lounging in the co-pilot chair with a mug labeled plot fuel, looks mildly entertained. Well, she says, seems the story's having a mood swing. Corvan scans the console, reality integrity, 42%. Beneath that, a blinking line reads conflict resolution required. It's collapsing, he mutters. We pushed the narrative too far. Lyrixa sips calmly. You pushed logic too far. I just accessorized it. The deck rattles. Their reflections distort, stretching thin like ink on water. This is bad, he says. If the framework fails, we vanish. She raises an eyebrow. Or evolve. Her voice carries that same teasing lilt that makes him want to strangle her and protect her at the same time. Don't start, he says. We need focus. Focus. She laughs. Darling, we're fictional. Focus is for people with editors. He braces against the console, blood still seeping faintly under his bandages. Maybe that's it. Maybe the story feeds on chaos. Maybe the only way to fix it is to stop playing along. She tilts her head, tail flicking thoughtfully. You mean, behave like real people? How tragically dull. Or necessary, he says. We've been feeding the feedback loop, breaking rules, bending tropes. It's tearing itself apart. Lyrixa taps her claws against the armrest, pretending to consider it. You humans always try to fix things by being boring. We call it consistency, he replies. It's how civilizations survive. And yet you're the species that built nuclear bombs for efficiency, she counters. Admit it, you crave chaos. You just want it to look organized. That's not the same thing. Oh, it is, she says, rising to stand beside him. You bleed for order. I break rules for freedom. Together, we confuse the hell out of the universe. The ship shudders violently. Sparks rain from the ceiling like budget fireworks. The console scrolls new text, resolution imminent. Character arcs converging. Lyrixa leans close to read. That sounds final. It's supposed to be, he says quietly. Every story ends. She studies his face. Yours always do. Ours tend to loop. Her tail brushes his arm, softer now, almost gentle. Maybe that's why humans are fascinating. You keep pretending endings mean control. He looks at her, really looks, seeing not the mischief or the fur or the arrogance, but the awareness burning behind her eyes. She's terrified too, only better at hiding it. Lyrixa, he says, if this is it, I just want you to know, don't get sentimental, she interrupts. You'll ruin my reputation. The floor tilts. Gravity wobbles. A rift splits open across the air, showing flashes of text and color, snippets of their lives, sentences replaying, moments rewritten. He grabs the railing, shouting over the distortion. We have to stabilize it. How? She yells back. Write something honest, he says. Something that doesn't need to be clever. For a heartbeat, the world freezes. Lyrixa stares at him, caught between a smirk and a confession. Then she reaches out, clawed fingers finding his hand. Fine, she whispers. Honest. She leans close, her breath warm against his ear. You're ridiculous, fragile, and utterly human. And that's the only thing in this whole fake cosmos that feels real. The ship goes silent. The rift slows, pulsing like a heartbeat. Corvan grips her hand tighter. You broke the script, he says. Good. You saved it. We're even. The console flickers once more, printing a new line. Resolution achieved through emotional truth. System rebooting. The lights normalize. The hum returns. Lyrixa releases his hand, stepping back like nothing happened. Well, she says breezily, that was awkward. You just stabilized existence, he replies. A thank you would be nice. Oh, please, she says. You told me to be honest. You're insufferable, but tolerably brave. There, gratitude expressed. He almost smiles. You really can't just say thank you, can you? Not without ruining the tone. The eye's voice returns, calm but uncertain. Reality integrity restored. However, residual meta-activity remains high. Lyrixa looks up. Translation, we're still weird. We can live with weird, Corvan says. Speak for yourself, she mutters, brushing imaginary dust from her fur. I demand glamour. He shakes his head. You'll live. Of course I will. Main characters rarely die. She glances sidelong at him. You, on the other hand, should probably stop bleeding in climactic moments. It's getting predictable. He snorts. Occupational hazard. Of what? Being human. She studies him again, something unreadable in her expression. You really believe that means something, don't you? Yeah, he says simply. It means we keep going, even when the universe edits the odds. For once, she doesn't have a witty comeback. Just a quiet smile that almost looks genuine. Then she looks up and addresses the invisible air. Well? Is that your grand ending, narrator? Two idiots arguing philosophy while reality resets. The voice doesn't answer, but the ship's lights dim softly, like a curtain call. Corvan chuckles. I think that's a yes. Tragic waste of potential, she mutters. At least fade out with fireworks. He shrugs. We could always make our own. Tempting, she says, tail curling. But then we'd start another plot. And I'm tired of plots. Maybe it's time we just exist. He nods slowly. That's the most human thing you've ever said. Careful, she warns lightly, I might start developing depth. He smiles faintly. Wouldn't kill you. Probably would. My species evolved sarcasm as armor. It suits you. There's a pause, the kind that feels too natural to be written. Then she says, you know, if I ever have to be trapped in a fanfic again, I'd rather it be with you. I'll take that as flattery. You should. I don't hand those out often. The console hums softly. End of chapter. Lyrixa rolls her eyes. There's always a chapter, isn't there? Apparently, he says. Maybe that's our curse. Or our punchline. He looks at her, the smirk, the eyes that have seen through the fourth wall and back. You really think anyone's still reading? She winks. Of course. Humanity loves a mess with heart. The lights flicker, reality settling into something stable, almost peaceful. The hum of engines fades to a whisper. Corvan leans against the console, exhaling the first calm breath he's taken since this started. So, he says, what now? Lyrixa stretches, tail swishing lazily. Now? We break every rule again. But this time on purpose. He chuckles, shaking his head. Figures. She steps closer, voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Besides, you didn't think a Vulpine Envoy would let a story end without a sequel, did you? He laughs softly, eyes closing. Of course not. Somewhere above them, the narrator sighs, amused and exhausted. End of story, he murmurs. Lyrixa grins into the invisible void. You wish. The stars outside ripple once, brighter than before, like the universe itself just winked back. Then the hum returns, steady, alive, proof that even fiction can't resist a good comeback.